So Iran has finally decided to become an active participant in the tensions that have drastically severely escalated in the past few days in the West Asia, the Middle East region. Now, the agenda of today's lecture will not be showing you the sensational videos of rocket launches. A barrage of around 300 missiles was launched by Iran over cities like Tel Aviv, Haifa port of Israel, in retaliation of assassination of Hezbollah's leader Nasrallah. So, in this all this discussion in the past decades of extremism or fundamentalism about Houthis, about Hamas, about Hezbollah, we have forgotten about the diversity or the economy, the culture, the geography, the landscape that helps make a nation. So it is very imperative, it is highly imperative to discuss not only what made or escalated this Israel Hezbollah adverse relationship in the first place, but about Lebanon in more detail. So, in one of my previous lectures, I had discussed, you can find it on my channel. So, in Iran and Israel, I had discussed about the relation. At that time, the Israel war against Hamas, which was operating from Gaza Strip, was at the peak of its developments or happenings. Now, more or less, it has been decimated to, it has been weakened. So now, according to resources, Israel is after one of the it is Hezbollah is considered the most heavily armed, most powerful non-state actors, and it is obviously a proxy, considered a Iranian proxy, which had its roots in the 1980s the when Israeli forces they occupied or made intrusions in the southern Lebanon region in order to drive out the people from the Palestinian Liberation Organization. So we'll discuss in brief about how Lebanon came to be. Then we'll discuss about the roots of this Israel Hezbollah war. We'll discuss some of the current situations, we already know that. And finally, the Indian perspective we have to consider. So, right. So this is the flag of Lebanon, and the interesting thing is, many of you might not know about this flag, but like the different colors in the tricolor, they have different significance. They denote, they stand for something. So similar, this green is the cedar tree. Okay, so this cedar tree represents the people of Lebanon, the prosperity, the steadfastness. So this is that symbol. Then red stripes, they stand for the bloodshed that has been incurred by the Lebanese people in search from freedom. So it was earlier in control, or we can, the most more appropriate term is mandate. After the First World War, it was under the occupation of France. And then the white stripes, like the Indian tricolor, it stands for peace, tranquility, purity, and moreover, the snow capped mountainous regions which exist in Lebanon. So I'll show you first. So this region which is shown, this is known as Phoenicia. So the settlements in Lebanon, this region is the present day Lebanon. This capital you can see Beirut. So this was obviously any civilization, any country has its history behind it. So this Phoenicia was a massive Mediterranean maritime empire which had different places under its control over this North Africa, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco. In Europe, we have the today's date the Spain. This is Sardinia, part of Italy. Then this is Sicily. Then we have this Libya. Then this Cyprus. Okay, so all these territories. So Phoenicia, this dates back to 3000 BC. Okay, so 3000 BC onwards, this Phoenicia. Then fast forward to 64 BC onwards, it came under the influence of the Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantine Empire. So that is why we have a huge influx of a significant proportion of the population of Lebanon is Christian population. There is a term marinate Catholicism, different types of Catholicism exist. So there is Shia Muslim population, Sunni Muslim population, then Greek Orthodox are there, then Maronite Christian population is there, the Druze population is there. I'll show you a pie chart of the different ethnic composition, but more or less they are descendants of the Arabic ethnicity, Arabism. So Lebanese people. So these are this is there. Then after in seventh century AD onwards, it came under the influence of various the medieval period. So the spread of Islam took place. It came under the influence of various dynasties. This region, Umayyad Caliphate, Abbasid Caliphate, the Mamluk Sultans. Okay, so this they came under. And finally, they came under the Ottoman rule. Okay, and there was one under this Ottoman rule, this proto state or erstwhile, not this nascent state, not equivalent to the present day Lebanon. It was the Lebanon proto state of Lebanon was established. Then after that, what happened? That in World War I, after World War I, when Turkey, Austria-Hungary, the Habsburg Empire was defeated by Britain, France. So they dismembered the Ottoman Empire. Okay. And then further, this Lebanon region further took shape towards what it exists, the boundaries exist today. And finally, the present day Lebanon came into existence. So I'll just summarize this. Okay. So I'll just highlight the points. So Mediterranean, 3,200. Okay. Then Roman Empire, 64 BC, 7th century, Abbasid, 11th century, Crusaders, Ottomans. Then Lebanese proto-state was established, dissolution, French mandate, and 1943, Lebanon had gained, and this confessionalist government. Now this I'll discuss in brief because there is a confessionalist government. Now there are various religious affiliations of basic people. So instead of what we call reservations, the various the powers to the civilians, the powers to the representatives of people in the government, in they are apportioned or given in proportion to their population. So for example, in the government structure, according to a particular law. So the de jure, not the de facto. So the de jure by law, it will be required that, for example, the prime minister can be a Shia Muslim, then the president can be a Sunni, belong to the Sunni sect, and then the speaker in the assembly, he can belong to the Christian affiliation. So Lebanon during the Ottoman Empire and also during the French Mandate period, it was a relatively prosperous country. Okay, so there are multiple activities, basic textiles were there, food processing industries there, so a lot of development was there. But what led to the downfall? What led to the downfall of Lebanon was not only corruption, was not only the financial crisis. There was a huge Beirut explosion of ammonium nitrate a few years back, which led to losses worth billions of dollars. A lot of casualties were there, and finally, the political and religious unrest. So that unrest basically we know because of the Israel Hezbollah Iranian participation as well. So if we go back here, so this we have discussed already, Phoenicia. So Israel, the history of the conflict. Now that is important. So again, if we go back here, so this is the present day de facto boundaries, and a lot of contentious boundaries are also there. So this is the de facto present day boundary of Israel. This is Lebanon, capital Beirut. Here, Haifa, major port which was attacked, major port of Israel, Tel Aviv. Here we have Jerusalem. Okay, then here we have Egypt, Jordan, Syria, and then to the east we have Iraq, and then to the east of Iraq we have Iran. Okay, then this, just for information, this some like this Gaza, this West Bank, primarily a lot of settlements. It does not primarily own to Palestine. A lot of Israeli settlements are also there. This Gaza Strip where Hamas trades from basically. This is the Rafah crossing, which was in news. Okay, this is the region of Golan Heights, which was occupied by Israel, which has been occupied by Israel. It is a part of Syria. And when Israel was being attacked by various Arab states from all sides in order to liberate Palestine. So during that, it was occupied. And here, this is the main point, the main focus of all the tension right now. The Hezbollah, which is the terrorist militant fundamentalist organization, it is operating from South Lebanon and it is conducting strikes. It is the most heavily armed non state actor, as I have said, in the world, and it is fully capable, highly a lot of modern ammunitions are there, and it has been fed ammunition by Iran. So it is a proxy for Iran. So what happened was that we're not going to primarily discuss about Israel but focus on Lebanon. So what happened was that if we go back to first the after the World War One in the 19 say in the late 1920 in the from the 1910s to 1920s. So in 1919, around about this time, so this mandate, League of Nations existed, which we can say synonymous but not exactly the same to the present day United Nations. Now, this League of Nations was ostensibly responsible for navigating and bringing about the stability of these regions which were at war during the this World War region. So this mandate system was brought about after the World War One. So this is not same as colonialism. This is different from colonialism. So at that time during 1920s, like India was a colonial, it was a colony of Britain. But what happened when these territories were under the occupation during the World War One and before that, the Ottoman rule. So when the Ottoman Empire was dismembered, so these various spheres of influence or various territories were portioned under various victorious states. So, for example, Israel and the adjoining these regions, they were given as influence spheres of influence to British. These regions they became the mandates, not the colonies of France. So basically, what we understand by mandate is that the countries which have these territories as mandates, so they can exert their influence. They have political, they can interfere in their matters, but they don't have direct, they are not colonies, and they will occupy these territories as long as they feel, up till the time which they feel that the people of that mandate are capable of self determination, of self rule. So it was a shrewd, or we can say cunning way of these Western powers to establish control, a sort of indirect control, indirect imperialist control. So this was during the 1990s. Fine. Then fast forward to 1948. Initially, during this period, 1920 onwards, Britain had Britain had promised the Arab state of Palestine to be established. And after, during the World War II, there was a mass exodus of Jews from the European nations where they had settled under the hostilities, under the persecution of Hitler and the Nazis. So that came to be, there came to be the demand for a separate Zionist or Jewish state came into picture. So we know that this region, the boundaries, the nation state, earlier in the earlier ancient period, during period of Jesus, or where when during the time where the Jerusalem was the uh, was the founding place of the three major religions, that is Judaism, the Christianity, and Islam. So they had a common ancestral Arab heritage. This concept of nation state, this concept of self determination, of that self identity was not there. So it was the people intermingled with each other. But so there were two demands over this area. One was promised by the British, the state of Arab Palestine, and then the Jews also started settling in these areas. And finally, by the time 1948, the Palestine's territory, amidst various wars with its fellow neighboring Arab states, it came into picture. And this is what I have shown, that Israel, what exists today. Earlier, British had promised this entire region to be the Arab Palestinian state. So slowly and gradually, the Jewish state came into picture. They developed infrastructure, they developed their armory, they developed their army. So development took place, and these, whereas the Arab Palestinian people were reduced to these structures, to these places. The West Bank, this is the West Bank, Gaza Strip. This is the Rafah crossing, which was in news when the conflict between Israel and Hamas was at its peak. So now we know that initially, since this region, this present day Lebanon region, was under the influence of the Byzantine Empire, so initially there were the majority Christian population. But then what happened was that slowly and gradually, the under the influence of the Ottoman rule, various caliphates, so the Shia and Sunni influx also took place. Further, after 1948 to till 1960s and beyond, the the Palestinian population also started migrating and settling in South Lebanon, because they were not accorded a state of Lebanese. And along with that, you might have heard of this term apart from Hamas, PLO, that is Palestine Liberation Organization. So this used to have much more significance until the Hamas took over charge, because it started feeling that PLO is ineffective in liberating Palestine. So this PLO and this came into, and these, because their aim was still there to liberate the Arab Palestinian state from the so-called clutches of the Zionist Jewish state of Israel. So they started conducting incursions and attacks on the Israel state, on the state of Israel. So in response, the Israel also retaliated. So it began to send forces into southern Lebanon in order to, obviously, to in order to safeguard their northern towns, in order to protect further escalation of conflict. So in that brief period, post the 1960s till the 1970s and early 1980s, Israel occupied this southern Lebanon region. So there not only were the Muslims, the Shia Muslims, they felt persecuted, but they also came into conflict with the Lebanese Christian militia. So, in order to maintain peace and law and order, so these Lebanese Christian militia plus the Israel Defense Forces, they came into conflict with the PLO and other small Shia militias. fine. But the Israel Defense Forces, Israel nation was able to exercise control over this southern. And fast forward to 1979, what happened was, I have discussed in the earlier lecture also. 1979 was a pivotal moment in the West Asian region because of the Iranian Revolution. So, before the Iranian Revolution, Iran and Israel were significantly or relatively at friendly terms. So, there was Pahlavi dynasty, which was ruling Iran. And after this revolution, Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the supreme leader of Iran, he started spreading the message of Islamic revolution and established Iran as a theological state. So not only he wanted to spread across Asia the message of pan-Arabism and this pan-Islamic, the Shia Islamism, but again it also wanted to join the cause along with Palestine to liberate the Arab state of Palestine from Israel. Okay, so it by the early 1980s, with the help of Iran, the Iranian regime, and also the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps. Okay, so this basically carries out operations outside Iran. So they supplied ammunitions, they provided training to the Shia Muslim fighters in Lebanon and other regions. And this in early 1980s, this recruitment drive led to the formation of Hezbollah, and they were so heavily armed when they directly came into conflict with Israel forces. A war of attrition started. What we mean by that? Because Israel was strong at that time also, but because these Hezbollah group, they had their posts, they had their bunkers in the places along which existed along with the general Lebanese population. So there was a lot of collateral damage, lot of civilian casualties, and moreover, these Hezbollah people were not only trying to drive out the Israeli occupants or the occupations made by the Israeli defense forces, but they also worked for the welfare of the Lebanese people. They provided healthcare, education. So gradually, this Hezbollah also became very popular with the Lebanese people, and they were even able to establish or secure power in the government with while by capturing a small portion, a significant proportion of the seats in the government. So here this was done. So finally by 1985, Hezbollah was able to drive out Israel. Okay, so this was used to be the primary aim of Hezbollah earlier, to drive out, but later gradually as the Palestinian movement gathered more immense momentum. So, along with Hamas, along with Houthis, along with Iran, the Hezbollah also joined in the cause. Okay, so this cross-border skirmishes have been taking place since that time, and it time and again it came to a head. For example, what happened in 2006 in a cross-border terrorist strike, the Hezbollah the Hezbollah the terrorists, they killed three of the Israeli soldiers and captured two of them. They took as hostages, and this again led to a small scale war. But a lot of casualties were there. And post October 2023, they have been uh, conducting explosions. They have been launching missiles into the Israel territory. So that is what the north towns of Israel have been. The population has been displaced. So now the Israeli forces have also started retaliating. So they are well equipped. This Hezbollah state is well equipped in terms of arms, the Fatah missiles, which was launched by Iran, and other equipment. Okay. This is very interesting. So we have already discussed the diversity. So Lebanon is also considered by the organizations as as an upper middle income country with a human development index of around 121. So initial, like we discussed that before all this started, it was a very economically prosperous country, lot of industries, food processing, textile, manufacturing industries. But now all these unrest have led to majorly service sector, employment in the service sector, which contributes to about 68% of the total GDP of Lebanon. And combined with that, what has happened was, so this corruption, financial crisis we have already discussed. So some of this religious denominations, so we have Shia Muslims, Sunni Muslims, Maronite, Christian, Greek, Orthodox, Druze. Druze is an esoteric Abrahamic religion, then Greek Catholic, so we can see the diversity. So there we have the government system of confessionalism. So that was an interesting portion. Okay, so I'll just summarize this. So is the history of the conflict. So this 1960s 17, they settled in South Lebanon. Israel attacked South Lebanon, invaded Lebanon, then security zone, Hezbollah killed. Okay, so ceasefire in Gaza. So you can just pause if you have missed out something. You can read this easily. Fine. Again in pictures. So we have already discussed several factors. So here, okay, Hezbollah was born out of war, Palestine Liberation Organization. Okay, civil war between the Christian militias and the Shia Muslim population. Okay, so civil war was there in order to establish the rights because the population, the minority population, felt persecuted and sidelined. Then 1982. Okay, so this aftermath, this led to the formation of Hezbollah and beyond. Okay, then they established popularity. They were fed or they were equipped by arms and ammunition from Iran. Then 1985, Israel withdrew completely from southern Lebanon. These three Israeli soldiers were killed, two were held captive, and since this was pagers, so this explosions, 5,000, so maiming lot of casualties were there. So in order to target the Hezbollah population. Fine. And now the final part which we are going to discuss, India's. So we know that India has a lot of stakes in the Gulf region in terms of import of crude oil, in terms of Indian diaspora, in terms of diplomacy and becoming a major power in the Gulf region, and also trade, transport. Okay. So obviously now Israel is planning to, there is speculation that Israel, this is Iran, so Israel is planning to attack the oil facilities, um, nuclear facilities, nuclear enrichment sites like Natanz, Fordo, in order to take revenge, in order for retaliation. Now, what was has happened if you recollect previous when the Israel Hamas war was at its peak? So here, this is Yemen. So the main rebels are the Houthis, which belong to the Zaidi sect. Okay, so they also are fighting for the cause of the Arabic state of Palestine to get liberated. So they started. This is the Suez Canal, which was opened in 1869. This is Bab el Mandeb Strait. Okay, Bab el Mandeb. This is the Sinai Peninsula. So we know that the Suez Canal serves as a major conduit or major channel through which trade and ships are carried. Before this existence or the presence of Suez Canal, the all the trade, all the cargo, the transport containers, the ships have had to go around this Horn of Africa, around the bottom Cape of Good Hope, all the way around the African continent to go to Western European nations. But now this, since the start of the Israel-Hamas war, these Houthi rebels, Houthi extremist elements, started yeah. They have started sinking, attacking the ships which are traveling. So this has become untenable for the countries to carry out their trade and transport. So this is a major concern. So in that perspective, what happened was in the G20 meet, which took place in New Delhi, this new transport corridor, this new regimen or new plan of developing a transport corridor all the way from India to Europe and beyond was floated in order to not only establish trade, improve communication, improve exports and imports, but also to reduce dependence on use of Suez Canal. So you can see various players, various Gulf states are included here. So here we can see it consists of the routes, the shipping routes, the railroad routes. It so Mumbai, Mundra, Gujarat. So in UAE, Jebel Ali Port, then Riyadh, capital of Saudi Arabia, Al Ghufaweh, Dharat, so important place, Haladita. Then up till Haifa, the important port of Israel, and further Piraeus. This is a port city in Greece, and further transport of cargo and conducting trade. So it is not only for the benefit of India and other Gulf states or establishing its influence or diplomatic power, it will also act as a counter to China's Belt and Road Initiative. Okay, the land Silk Route and the maritime ocean Silk Route. So it is a counter to that also. And so this will not help in conducting good relations. So a lot of other things are there to discuss also. There is no limit to which we can discuss the things. But this is an important. So how this India Middle East European corridor, which help India to expand its trade and reduce dependence. So we know that Chabahar port in Iran is also in development. So we have yet to see that what sanctions are being made on Iran and how the India Iran relations are enforced or developed after this escalation. So finally, to conclude, now obviously brinkmanship has the line been breached. So if you know the definition of brinkmanship, so brinkmanship is basically which attains to following a dangerous political policy to the cusp, to the level beyond which a devastating escalation would take place. Now, has this boundary been already crossed or not? We have yet to see in the coming days how Israel retaliates, what other intrusions are made by Iran. So, just keep. I hope you enjoyed this session. Very important, not only from competitive examinations, but also for general awareness also. So, till we meet again next time, Jai Hind.